Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisum, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Song Revolution podcast. This is the place where you can get so tanked up on inspiration, love, information, did I say love, and lots of love for your songwriting. So I'm just so thankful that you're tuning in. It's been an amazing ride, and we only launched this thing last April. No joke. And we have had, I think, 34,000 downloads through all of our sources. I mean, we're on Spotify, iTunes, our own NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com site. We're on Stitcher, YouTube. That's 5 that I can think of, and I'm probably leaving something out. But, One Jam Nation Radio. There you go. Here's a big shout out to the One Jam Nation folks. But you know what? Just amazing reach that God has given us to bring empowering messages for Christian songwriters and anybody who's just interested in the kind of things that we're doing. So thank you for listening. And to celebrate starting our next 50 episodes, because we did 50, 2 weeks ago, we had our 50th episode with Jared Anderson, who was marvelous. So if you didn't hear Jared, go back and check that one out. But we decided to split up our most popular episode with A&R director from Centricity Music, John Mays. And John has been instrumental in the careers of so many people. Point of Grace, Cindy Morgan, the national anthem. He's just done so many things with so many people over the years. He's been an A&R director for several companies. He's been around. This dude's been around, and he is a dear friend of ours. And his episode, because he and I go so far back that it was an hour and a half conversation, and it was episode number 3, and I was just scraping around trying to get anybody to be on the show that I could get, and John is such a dear guy. He decided to be on with us. But his episode has become like the most downloaded episode in the history of the Song Revolution podcast. I think we're around 7,000 downloads. But hey, it's called How to Make It in the Christian Music Industry, and I think that's probably why you're listening. So we decided to break it up into part 1 and part 2. So we reissued part 1 of John Mays and my conversation, How to Make It in the Christian Music Industry, last week. And if you're just tuning in, this is part 2, which is going to be great, but go back and get part 1 as well. So I know that you're going to get lots of great value, lots of fun and inspiration, and you're going to fall in love with John Mays, as I and so many other thousands of people have, because he's just like the original good guy. We love you, John. Thanks so much for all that you've contributed to our lives for over all these years of your career, and just who you are as a human being, because I know who you are. I know who you are. But hey, everybody listening, please welcome and enjoy part 2 of How to Make It in the Christian Music Industry with moi and John Mays. The thing I hammer home more than anything is you have to learn to think like a professional songwriter.
Yeah.
And I think that plays in a little bit to your 4 elements. Can you talk just a little bit about each one of those?
And now we're talking about being signed to a label, not a publisher, but like a songwriter signed to a publisher. But I do think they're very close. Yeah. And for what it's worth, almost every artist we sign, we also sign their publishing. In fact, if we can't, that's an issue. It's hard to work around that.
Sure.
So we want to sign people as songwriters as well as artists. So I think I could go kind of in order here to say most important to least important of these 4, and most important would be the work ethic thing. Maybe for your listeners, that would look like, I have a job, I work at Starbucks, I do whatever I can because I pay the bills. And that's that's your job that pays, right? But I have another job, and that's a songwriter that I take as or more serious than my other job. It just doesn't pay me anything yet. So this week, I know I'm going to commit 20 hours to my second job that's not paying me. Maybe 4 hours, whatever I can do. I treat it like a job. And that job may mean getting getting a relationship going. That's part of the job, a co-writer relationship going. Maybe you have coffee with somebody, but it more likely would look like I'm finishing a chorus. I'm making a better chorus. I'm finishing the bridge. I'm starting a new idea. I'm going to work as a songwriter. I've told this story before, but we have a singer-songwriter named Jason Gray who was staying with us before we were, I think we were like 2 days away from tracking, and we didn't have all our songs, but there was a song that he needed to finish. And I've turned into a go to bed early, get up early guy over the years. But I went to bed about 10, and I could hear him upstairs working on that song. When I got up at 4 the next morning, he was still working on that song. And he wasn't working he was working to move it from something good to something great, because he has very high work ethic when it comes to his writing. So that idea that there's a whole notion in town, right, that it's not about how good you are, it's about what you do with it. Right? And that the people who show up every day to go to work, John, you're an amazing example of this. Those people usually find their way to making a living with their work, with their art. So I'm going to say work ethic is the most important thing. Second would be the song thing. And the guy, the girl who shows up in town with 2 or 3 good songs under their belt, those people get attention fast, because that's what everyone in the industry is looking for. There are a lot of talented people who can sing songs, a lot of bands who sound good together. What is hard to find is a great songwriter, a great song, right?
I agree, absolutely.
We spend so much of our time either trying to find that song or get a song from good to great.
Yeah.
So you investing time in your second job to either move your own gift to a higher level or to get a particular song from good to great is never a bad investment in this town. I can't think of who said this. It's a fantastic quote. I could look it up if you need it, but it was that talent isn't a rare commodity. Discipline is.
Wow, that's great. Now that's a tweetable.
Isn't that fantastic?
Tweetable. I know who that is. That's great.
So that also speaks to the work ethic. But so having songs is a leverage in this town. Having good songs is a leverage in this town that nothing else creates.
And what if you had great songs?
That's the standard.
Right?
No, we don't want to record just good songs, right? So work ethic, songs, I would say that third one is the uniqueness, and that's kind of qualified. Uniqueness won't get you signed, but there's a weird way that you kind of have to sound like everything else, but not exactly like everything else, right?
It's especially like 1 degree.
Yeah. Especially in commercial music. You can't be completely different, or radio will go, well, that's not what we play, right? Yeah. But you also can't be like everything else, or they'll go, oh, we already play that.
Yeah.
That's already Mercy Me or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're kind of always looking to ways to nudge things where they don't sound like everything else, but they sound enough like everything else that they'll get embraced. So that's the whole uniqueness thing. And then the fourth one is talent. It's weird that that's the least important thing on my list, but I don't even know if I know what talent is anymore. I mean, I did a record with Phil Kagi back when I was at Sparrow. Well, I could tell another work ethic story here.
Yeah, sure.
You may not have time for it, but
we do. We're cool.
I did this record with Phil, which was an instrumental record. And for people who don't know, Phil Kagi is considered, at least by guitar players, as one of the greatest living guitar players in the world.
Right.
And this was back this would have been 98, 99. And he hadn't had a song at radio in a while. This was an instrumental record. We didn't really think anything was going to work for radio, but we did do a radio tour where the artist goes out and visits with radio stations. And I went out on a few days of it with him since I'd been involved in the record. So when you do these radio promo tours, they usually want you to be there for their drive time, which is their early time in the morning. That's when they have their most listeners, when people are driving to work. So you're sitting there, you got to get up early. It's not very artist-friendly hours.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to meet in the lobby at 6 a.m. I'm brushing my teeth at the sink in my room, and I think I hear scales on an electric guitar not plugged in the room next to me. It was loud enough that I could hear it through the wall. So I get down to the lobby, and I'm like, were you practicing scales this morning? I heard it, maybe our rooms were next to each other. Phil was like, yeah, I try to get in 3 hours a day, and when I'm traveling, I have to get up an hour early. That's what I said, 3 hours a day. Already by common acclamation, one of the greatest guitar players in the world. And that's why,
Wow.
So, but there also is that layer of natural gifting that enables him, along with that kind of commitment to the discipline, to be that world-class kind of guitar player. That is talent. But at the same time, there's a 15-year-old kid who can go buy a $69 copy of a Strat somewhere, get it on YouTube, and all of a sudden be celebrated as the hottest thing in music. I wouldn't call that talent, but it got the guy to a national platform. So that gets weird. I guess I would say that talent is whatever communicates what's important to you. If you're on a stage or you have a platform, you're making a video, and whatever it is that you like or is important to you can communicate and connect with someone, that's probably talent in whatever form it takes.
Yeah.
So those are the four things: work ethic, songs, uniqueness, and talent or giftedness for me.
Yeah.
Now, like natural, raw giftedness.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing. That's a great story about Phil.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, because the writers I work with, a lot of times they're so heavily invested in one song. Oh, yeah. And it's like, no, man, you got to write 12 like this week or, this month.
Yeah.
But to be writing, one song a month and thinking that you're going to have any level of accomplishment it's just kind of crazy. So
Matt and I were talking about this last week because over the years, one thing has proven to be so consistent with artists who write, who are turning in songs. Like, if there's any way, don't respond for a week or any way to work it, let them sit with that song for a week, because the day they turn it in, it's the best song they've ever written.
Yeah.
And there's a joke in town about what's your best song? It's the last one you wrote, right?
Right.
And there is some love for that. You just finished something. You're excited about it. You love it. But you get some distance from it, and it becomes, okay, maybe it's not the best thing I ever wrote. So you're always trying to get artists, offer them perspective. And a lot of times that perspective is, it's not the most recent thing I wrote, even though you thought it was,
Well, great stuff. Before we begin to wrap up, I would like to do a rapid-fire double points bonus round. Is that all right?
You bet.
All right, so give me one-word answers.
Oh my gosh.
For these, all right?
Okay.
So
can I give one word and then offer explanation?
Maybe. But okay, so the first part of it is, what's it like to, okay, ... and then I'm just going to throw out a few things,
okay,
right? And then, and then just going to see where this goes. So, all right, so what's it like to know famous people?
Know them or work with them?
Just know them. You know lots of really famous.
Fun.
You just named Phil Keggy, so.
Yeah. Well,
one word.
My qualifier would be working with them is messy.
Okay, that's good.
The celebrity factor or layer and a dynamic and that an artist or popular songwriter is having to deal with makes relationship with that person messy, and especially trying to get work done when someone is especially going through a celebrated season of their career where they're maybe even just hard to access, but mostly that celebrity is messing with their heart and mind in a way that no one can really relate to that hasn't been through it.
Wow. You just totally tanked my rapid fire double.
I'm so sorry. Messy.
Messy. All right. What's it like to go to the Grammys? You were there recently.
Fun. There's a whole story about my last visit, but I won't tell it. I'll use these 2 words, stomach flu.
Oh, no. Really?
At the Grammys.
Oh, shoot. That's terrible.
But it's fun.
Who was the most famous person? Okay, I'm tanking the rapid fire bonus. Who was the most famous person you saw or were close to at the Grammys?
Well, I don't know that there was anybody this year. Last year, I met Alabama Shakes. And that was fun.
Sweet.
Yeah. Nice. And I was walking out of a room, and their bass player, who, if anybody knows that band, is unmistakable looking.
Yeah.
And he's walking toward me, and I'm like, I point at him, go, Alabama Shakes? He goes, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And he shook my hand, and then the rest of the band came. And that was fun. And I love their music, so that was fun for me.
Yeah, they're absolutely
But anybody
amazing.
This year would have just been anybody that was on stage. That's probably as close as I got.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. What's it like to win a Dove Award?
Humbling. Okay, I'm going to unpack that. Because it's humbling because before you win one, at least in the industry, have you won one, John?
No, I got nominated once.
Yeah. Your attitude toward it is, I think, maybe subconsciously defensive, but like, oh, this Dove Award thing. Yeah. But then you win one, and it's like, oh no, this is important.
Pretty good, yeah.
So that it reflects your own kind of ego is humbling that you deal with that.
What is it in Christmas Story, that leg lamp, and it's like a genuine award, or what does he say?
It's a major award.
A major award, that's right. So
when you win one, it's like, no, this is a legit thing. Yeah. My peers voted, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But before that, you poo-poo it all. So it's humbling to see that ugliness in yourself. You know?
Yeah. What's it like to produce a real record that's going to go out in the industry?
A challenge, especially on a song level. Unpack that?
Yeah, no.
Okay, we'll let it go.
Let's move on because we talked a lot about that. Right. What's it like to tour on a bus?
Oh, stinky. Difficult because it's you don't sleep and
Yeah.
And our mainstream years of doing it, you get to where you sleep better on the bus than you do at home. And you get used to that life, and then you got to switch back to normal life. That's just difficult.
What's it like to eat organic?
Wouldn't know.
2 words.
Unless Mexican food is organic.
Are you still as fond of Mexican food as you always were?
More.
Really?
Uncle Julio's opened in Brentwood.
Is that your favorite here?
Yeah, probably now.
Yeah. All right.
They beat Chewy's.
Oh, wow. That's pretty big.
That says something.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
All right. Last one in this little bonus round that we totally bogged down in. What's it like to work with some of the most popular Christian artists today? You've got, Johnny Diaz, Jason Gray, Lauren Daigle, some other people, wonderful people.
What's it like?
Yeah. I mean, in a word or
it's
two.
It's rewarding. Okay. Rewarding.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Is there anything before we I do have a couple of just random questions here at the end, but is there anything about your current roster that you would like our listeners to know? Anything you'd like to point out? Upcoming releases? You just had some recent, of course, amazing success with Lauren.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about the Centricity roster of artists?
Well, that's a little tough because I would feel responsible to say something about all of them. And of course, I do have high belief in all of them. And they're all in different cycles of new things coming out that I hope everyone would go to the website and look at and, be interested in. That would be my hope. But I would say maybe this is important to say. You've mentioned Lauren a couple of times, and Lauren is the current unicorn in the industry. These just don't come along for any label. And any label would say that God has just favored her work and her life in a way that we never expected, you would only dream of, right? But I think what's important to say there, and maybe this applies on a micro level to the writers who are listening, we didn't work any harder on Lauren than we did on stuff that we can't get any traction on. And this kind of goes full circle back to our job is to do the work and to do the best work that we can. But God did that with Lauren and is doing that. And so we celebrate it. We try to participate in it and be good stewards, your word, of it, which means hard work. But maybe we've worked less hard on her because things just happened so easily for her. We were joking the other day that there was some new award she had won, and are we doing a press release or whatever? And I just said, well, why don't we just wait for the Nobel Peace Prize, because she'll probably win that, and then we can just do them all together. But that's a jokey way to say that God is just doing incredibly unusual things with her, and it's just a very unusual thing. It's not necessarily a measurement for how your label is doing, because it's almost beyond that,
Wow. Very, very wise. Yeah. Very wise. Just a couple of random things, just short answers as we begin to wrap up. What, or do you have any artists in general that you feel that you'd point our listeners to whether they're Centricity artists or anybody in general, secular artists that are in the general marketplace, that you think are blazing any new trails, anything that would be fresh and inspiring? Anybody that you listen to? We were talking podcast earlier, and that'd be a great discussion to have too. But as far as music, artists, anybody you'd point our folks to? Well,
I will be a little narcissistic here and hold up one of our artists. You mentioned him, Jason Gray. If one of your listeners who's a songwriter is interested in what, in my opinion, would be an amazing combination of sensitivity to radio, but still a high commitment to thoughtfulness and art, it's embodied in Jason Gray's new record. Now, not every song, but the songs that in fact, our marketing people came up with the term thoughtful pop. Because when you think pop, you think bottom shelf, positive and encouraging. We got to keep this really simple. Not Jason. Jason finds a way to express really thoughtful, deep ideas and put them in a pop context that I think his current record, which is called Where the Light Gets In, if they wanted to go stream it or something, is a great example that both those things can coexist in the same song. It's really hard. He works really hard at it, but it's there. And then there are other songs. There's a song called Death Without a Funeral. Obviously, that's not going to be a big radio positive, encouraging song. But that's someone I would love to point your listeners to. There is a current trend that they could hear in Goodness, Chainsmokers, Zed, a lot of these DJ remix program guys, that is ushering in a wave that I think is worth considering, and maybe your listeners would be interested in looking at. I've always been a big guy. A song is a lyric and a melody, right? That's what a song is. Now, you can do anything with that to produce it, but that's not songwriting. Songwriting is a lyric and a melody. Well, I'm starting to shift off that a little bit, because so much songwriting now is happening. This is a lot with our artists, and I think around town, where you have the artist usually in the room. Then you've got sometimes what's called a top line person, which is either bringing a lyric or melody. Maybe that's their specialty. And then this term we have for someone else called a track guy. And the track guy is in there. We have an artist named Jordan Felice. This happened on his record, where the track guy is sitting in there. He's not writing lyric or melody. He's building a track. And it may be a beat and a bass part. It may be really simple, or it may be growing fairly fully formed as the day goes along. But Jordan had a song called The River, and when that song, the demo of that song came in, it was 90% of what people heard on the radio, because that track guy took it to that place. It wasn't an acoustic guitar or a piano in a room with a scratch vocal or what we would call a work tape. It was a fully formed, almost master sounding demo. And then I start to go, well, that guy's name is Colby Wedgeworth. That was the track guy that day. Was he writing or was he not? That wasn't lyric or melody, but I think you have to say he was writing the song.
In my mind, you would be.
Yeah. So there's almost this third wave now that's kind of fresh of ways to contribute to a song that really didn't exist before.
Hey, we're going to take just a quick break from the show so that we can let you in on some amazing things happening around here at Nashville Christian Songwriters.
Are you a Christian songwriter wishing you could be heard by the right people in Nashville? Yeah, we get it. You've been writing for years, but you have no idea how to be heard, how to get your songs out there, or how to connect your talent with opportunities. You feel stuck and wonder if you'll ever get a real break. NCS Bootcamp is your chance to be heard by taking your songwriting to a level you've only dreamed of. It gives you hands-on, personalized coaching and mentoring to help you think and write like a professional Christian songwriter determined to impact the world with your songs. If you're ready to empower your songwriting dreams, go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com/bootcamp to book your free songwriting breakthrough strategy call today. Become the songwriter you were born to be with NCS Bootcamp.
Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode.
So maybe some of your listeners out there, that's their strength, is they build tracks. They hear beats and bass parts and guitar parts and keys and pads. And if you listen in pop music, it's everywhere. They've also added a fourth. I don't know if you've gotten into song form yet, on any of your podcasts, but where, you typically have always had bridge, sometimes pre-chorus, verse, starting with a verse, sometimes a pre-chorus, then a chorus, that repeats, then a bridge, and then the chorus out. Now, if you listen, you'll have like verse, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and now this fourth section. Like if you listen to that Chainsmokers song is probably the most recent example, Closer, that has that hook, dun, 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 dun. That is the hook of the song. There's no vocal in it, and it's what you would call the chorus. Even though there was a chorus before that, what we would have called a chorus. That's a whole new song form that is really popular right now. And a lot of new artists that we're looking at kind of on our radar that are writing songs with track people in the room, that's the song form that's happening. There's almost 4 sections to it.
Yeah.
Verse, usually almost always a pre-chorus, what we would have called a chorus, and then they would call it the drop or the breakdown. But it is really the most memorable part of the song, and it's usually for 16 bars, and it's just music.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. It kind of reminds me of some of the earlier Hillsongs songs that would have kind of a repetitive hook that really was, I'm trying to think of an example now that I'm saying this, but some of the earlier songs where they had a different section, a fourth section, that kind of became a hook of the song that was sung. But anyway, that's cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's cool. So a third wave with a track master.
Yeah.
In the room.
If some of your listeners either write by themselves, surely you're going to be talking about, if you haven't already, co-writing and collaboration, how important that is. And it is a weird dynamic in songwriting because you don't co-paint or co-sculpt or all these other disciplines. But there is something about songwriting where you can co-write a song and leave that room going, that's a better song than I would have written by myself.
Absolutely.
Both of you saying that. And now this third thing is getting added of and I'm doing air quotes, the track guy. I do know some track guys that don't like being called that. They like being called songwriters.
Yeah.
And I get that. Yeah. But it's the person kind of programming the bed for the lyric and melody that's getting written. Wow. And it kind of makes the song work or not work.
That's so cool. All right. Well, one last question as we wrap up. This has been rich. This has been so cool. Thank you so much for just the depth and breadth and height and just your wisdom and such amazing insights into where we are now. Some great insights for the writers, work ethic, uniqueness, all those things that I hammer home with these people. Yeah. And so, that's great. Thank you for reinforcing those things. But so I guess maybe my last question, for today would be, if you could, this is going to be great. This is a great question. If you could take only one CD,
I hate these questions,
to the moon forever, what would it be? I know, don't you hate it?
I get these all the time. And I can give you my answer that because you get to okay, I'm going to give you an answer. But the truth is, you don't know what mood you're going to be in on the moon, right? And music is all about the mood. And I would have records for different moods, but if I have to name one, like gun to the head, pardon the pun, it would be Beatles' Revolver.
There you go.
Rubber Soul would be right there, second to it. But, those are the two records that move them from almost a cover band, or at least a teenage girl bebop band, and touring and all that. It's when they stopped touring and they went in the studio and we're going to write real songs and record them. And we're just going to be a recording band. Those two records, I think, have influenced music up to this time.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Powerful influence. Songs that last literally generations. A friend of mine went to see McCartney last time he was in town, and we got to talking about, is there another artist in the world who would have a harder time deciding what number one songs he's not going to do tonight? There's not very many artists.
No.
That when McCartney, I think, is 74, when we lose him, man, I hope the media celebrates him with the honor he's due.
Yeah.
You think about the body of work, and with Lennon for so long, but then even Wings and beyond. The amount of commercial work that guy has put out, and I guarantee you, he's a show up kind of guy. He writes every day. If you've read, or he did, I don't know if at this age if he's still doing that, but that guy put out the work for a long time. He showed up. That makes me. I'd love to make one more recommendation.
Yeah,
it's a sister to songwriting books, and I know you get into all these, but Stephen King wrote a book called On Writing, that is half his story, which is amazing, and half his discipline for writing. I think it's 3,000 words a day that Stephen King says, I'm going to write this every day. He writes it in the same place every day. He may struggle more than other days, but he's not going to quit until he writes 3,000 words a day. This idea, we're circling back to it, the work ethic thing, that the great music that lives across generations is born out of inspiration and the muse. This history has completely proven that wrong. You need that. You want to write out of inspiration, but generally inspiration shows up after you go to work, right?
Brilliant.
What's the quote about opportunity is missed by so many people because it shows up dressed in overalls? I can attribute all these quotes. I can't remember who said them, but later.
We'll attribute them to you from this podcast.
No, I don't want to do that. But people who get this sense, and man, this is so true for your writers, that I heard Tony Wood say one time that it's 20% inspiration and 80% perspiration, right?
Yeah.
There's something, though, about the creative life and world and work that you don't expect it to be that way. That the most successful people will be the ones in the long run that put in the work, that showed up every day. And I'm telling you, you can look at Edison, Einstein, get way out of the songwriting field. I think Edison had, with his team, a goal that they were going to invent. There were going to be 6 minor inventions every quarter and 1 major invention every 6 months. That's just their goal. We're going to show up every day to work toward that. You know, I mean, maybe your listeners need to set a goal. I'm going to finish a song a week. I can't tell you, John, how sad it is to realize that guy has got 200 unfinished songs in his computer. I mean, that happens all the time. There's something about this notion of finishing, right? Where you have to come to terms with your own level of gifting that will keep you from finishing a song and just go start another one. And I don't there's something that looks bad in terms of stewardship about that you can't come to terms with your own gift and growth and say, I'm going to finish this and then go to the next one. A lot of writers need to set that goal. Like, I'm going to finish the song I started.
Yeah, right?
Or the 100 that I started. I bet you could speak to that all day.
Well, don't you think that, especially in the Christian world, we think that God drops songs on us and we don't really have to learn how to write?
Oh, John. Yes. And what's weird is God does drop some songs on people sometimes, you know, but that doesn't mean that you don't steward that your own level of gifting doesn't somehow mysteriously work alongside what God gave you. What's that Harold Best thing we used to say that he used to make fun of people who would say, God gave me this song.
Oh, yeah.
And he would say, well, God gave you breath too, but it doesn't mean it doesn't stink in the mornings.
That's good. I'd forgotten that one. Yeah, I usually, at least in my mind, when somebody says God gave them a song and, you know, and I realize that it's, you know, pretty undeveloped or even just outright bad, I'll think, well, that's because he doesn't want it anymore. But, you know, I never say it, you know, right. Or don't blame that on God. You know,
exactly.
It's a lot better than that. But people drop the God card, especially in our Christian music, Christian songwriting thing. But, you know, I didn't prep you to bring up this topic as we're kind of wrapping up here, but I think it's extremely important, you know, the craft, because here you are telling me that on your label for your artist, you know, you have trouble finding these breakthrough radio hits. And then I've got
so much.
I've got thousands of people wishing they could write it, but they're not willing or able to invest in learning how to do it because they don't think, they don't think they need to do it, but whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to think that there's this need, and yet I've got, you know, thousands of people wishing they can do it, but they just can't quite figure out. And, you know, I mean, I hope that we're kind of the answer. I mean, I have people tell me every day, I saw your Facebook ad and I've been praying, you know, and it's like they call me the answer to their prayer. Now I'm kind of getting over into my business side. Yeah. But then they're not in a place to invest in their own craft or willing to, or they don't think they need it. And it's like, I'm sitting here looking at this incredible need. So
you just said 2 interesting things. They're not at a place where they will invest in their own craft, or they don't think they need it. I mean, if you're not at a place where you can invest in your own craft, I don't think you're serious as a songwriter. I promise you, I'm going to speak for Chad Segura, who heads up our publishing here. And you notice my first thing on getting signed was work ethic. We talked about that. But if you don't demonstrate that you're committed to the work of the craft, you'll never get signed. I think that's true with any publisher, any label. Like, you're bringing a catalog of songs, right, that you've worked hard over. That is kind of that's the knock on the door to any publisher. If you don't think you need to do that, that really says something negative about you as a writer. And then, of course, if we get into what God you know, they don't need to because God gives them this or whatever.
I know.
It's just a sad misunderstanding, I think, about the way it works. Now, that's not to say or take away from, I know you've experienced this, and I think of Aaron Schust, one of our artists who wrote My Savior, My God. That chorus came to him sitting in a car in about 2 minutes, and he had a red Sharpie on a yellow Wendy's napkin and wrote that chorus down. That happens, right? And you're certainly going to say, God poured that into me, but at the same time, it is, if he hadn't put in the work, go.
Yeah, I mean, the deal is, it's funny how God gives the best songs to people who know how to write. It's like, so Aaron could not, in my opinion, have received, if you want to put it in that language, he could not have really been able to capture that inspiration in 2 minutes for an entire chorus if he didn't already know intrinsically how the craft works.
Yes.
He might have had the idea, but he might not have been able to craft it.
But I do think a lot of writers would say when they've had 1 or 2 times that experience has happened to them, and then they've also labored for 6 weeks over a chorus that just doesn't come, that somehow God favored them in that moment and, blessed them with a quick chorus. And of course, that one changed his life. That was his career song that came to him in that couple of minutes. I'm the first to say, could that have happened without his dedication to the discipline? But at the same time, in the big picture of things, certainly God does that occasionally, and you just receive it as the gift that it is, right? I didn't have to work as hard for that one. It kind of came in, and I thank God for it.
But think of all the hours he put in,
oh my goodness.
On all the others. So I think it's much more likely. I mean, hey, I don't put anything past God. I think for me, it's the dependence on that. It's kind of like playing the lottery.
That's a great word.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, rather than taking the responsibility to hone your craft, learn the real principles, and then be receptive, I think it's laziness. Can I say that on my own podcast? Song Revolution podcast, laziness.
The big L.
It's like, come on,
I've heard Tony Wood use the metaphor of the hand and glove, that it is, you're the glove, but it's God's hand going in that glove that's moving the glove around. But the glove is an important part of the process. So every time somebody sits down to write, whether it feels completely inspired or totally dry, there's this mysterious dance going on, right, of what God is inspiring you with in that moment or across your life, and what you're bringing in terms of skill that you've developed over the years. That's just a beautiful mystery that if you get too far off on either one, you mess up the mystery. It's all about you or it's all about God. No, it's this weird mix.
Wow. I love that mysterious dance.
Yeah.
That's a great phrase because it is. It's difficult to pin it down. And when you're trying to coach people and get them into that space, it's kind of like, hold on, let go, hold on. It's like,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you...
And you don't know if you got it right.
Yeah.
It's just,
wow.
There's just a good bit of mystery to that. And maybe you would be way better equipped to say this than me, but maybe sometimes the messiest dance produces the thing you're the most proud of or the most happy with. In the moment of the dance, you're like, this is going nowhere. And then you get it done, or maybe you get a collaborator to help see things in it that you're not seeing and get it finished. And you go, wow, I thought that was going nowhere. And look what came from it.
Yeah. Well, John, this has been incredibly rich, as I knew that it would be.
Oh, my goodness.
And I feel like we could go on another hour or so. and maybe next time I have you on the show, we can just talk very specifically about songwriting and the craft. And because I think you have such insights and you're dealing with it over 3 decades and then are still so current and right in the middle of it and experiencing so much success, whether you knew how you were, receiving it or not. That's awesome. And so congratulations to you. Thank you for being here and for being my best friend for so many long chicken wing. I love you, man. Thanks for being here today for the Song Revolution podcast from Nashville Christian Songwriters. We exist to empower you and to bring you some of the greatest inspiration, insights, and important people from the Christian music world to help you write your best and to be heard as the songwriter that you were born to be. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us over on Twitter and Instagram, and connect with us through our Facebook group called Successful Christian Songwriters. Until next time, I'm John Chisum, calling you to a song revolution.